She doesn't fall for your looks, she falls for your energy, for the peace in your presence, the power in your silence, and the purpose in your eyes. Because in a world full of men trying to impress, she's waiting for the one who doesn't have to. There's something magnetic about a man who doesn't chase. He walks into a room and doesn't need to announce his presence. His energy speaks before he does. He doesn't beg for attention, he commands it, silently. You see, the modern woman is tired of boys pretending to be men, tired of empty compliments and hollow promises, tired of being chased by someone who doesn't even know who he is. But when a high-value man walks in, she notices, not because he tried to get her attention, but because he didn't. What makes him different? It's not his money, his car, or the brand on his wrist. It's not about how loud he can be or how many women he's been with. It's about who he is when no one is watching. He has emotional discipline. He knows how to walk away from temporary pleasure because he's building something permanent within. He doesn't beg because he knows his worth, and the world responds to the man who truly knows his worth. Women are drawn to this man not because he texts them every hour, but because when he speaks, he's intentional. He's not trying to impress anyone, he's in purpose. And there's nothing more attractive than a man who is rooted in purpose. His silence is not absence, it's focus. His distance is not disinterest, it's direction. He's not avoiding women, he's not obsessed with chasing them. He's busy becoming the kind of man they chase. Now here's the truth many men ignore. Women are emotional beings. We don't fall for what's shown, we fall for what's felt. And a high-value man understands that. You don't attract a woman by performing, you attract her by aligning. She doesn't fall for you because you keep calling. She falls for you because of the way you made her feel, respected, safe, intrigued, curious. And here's the twist. Women are not attracted to a man they fully understand. They're drawn to the man who remains a little mysterious. The man who doesn't overshare. The man who makes her wonder what's on his mind. Not because he's playing games, but because he has more to his life than just her. He's building, he's working, he's evolving. He makes her feel like she's in the presence of someone rare. Not someone who's trying to impress her, but someone who's already impressed with his own journey. A high-value man doesn't need to chase women because the kind of woman he wants is naturally drawn to strength, maturity, depth, and direction. She watches how he moves, how he treats others, how he carries himself when he thinks no one is looking, and suddenly she's the one leaning in. You don't need to lift a finger when your energy, your aura, your mission does the talking for you. High-value attraction is not about doing more, it's about being more. Because in a world full of noise, the man who remains grounded, quiet, and intentional is the one every woman wants, but only few can truly reach. There's something magnetic about a man who doesn't chase. He walks into a room and doesn't need to announce his presence. His energy speaks before he does. He doesn't beg for attention, he commands it, silently. He doesn't look around wondering who's watching him, because his attention is already anchored within. He has nothing to prove, and that's exactly what makes people pay attention. Women notice the way he carries himself, the calm confidence, the composed presence, the assurance that he is enough. And he is. Not because he said it, but because he lives it. He has worked on himself enough to not seek validation, and that, right there, is the most attractive thing about him. You see, in a world where people constantly try to impress, where attention is currency, a man who is not desperate for it becomes valuable. He becomes rare. He becomes the kind of man women can't help but notice. Not because he's loud, but because he's different. His silence isn't weakness, it's strength. His restraint isn't fear, it's power. He doesn't run after people, not because he can't, but because he understands that what's meant for him will be drawn to him. There's peace in the way he carries himself. And women are drawn to that peace. Because let's be honest, women aren't looking for a man who makes noise. They're looking for a man who brings calm, a man who is rooted, a man who knows who he is. The high-value man understands that attraction isn't built on trying harder. It's built on becoming more grounded, more focused, more intentional. He doesn't flirt just to pass time. He doesn't text 10 different women to feel good about himself. He doesn't need games to keep someone interested. His life is already full of purpose, of goals, of discipline. And that's what makes him magnetic. A woman looks at him and thinks, there's something about him. And it's not something she can easily describe because it's not something he shows. It's something he is. And that's the difference. He's not trying to impress. He's just living in alignment with who he truly is. And that authenticity creates a pull stronger than any pickup line ever could. He's the kind of man who doesn't need to compete. His success isn't measured by attention, but by growth. He's evolving, and that makes him interesting. That makes him dangerous in the best way. Because a man who's growing is a man who's not easy to keep up with. And women love a challenge. But this challenge isn't about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to reach. Because he's busy building something that matters. And the truth is, women aren't just looking for a man. They're looking for someone who makes them feel something different, something deeper. And this man, he does that without even trying. He's unpredictable, not because he's inconsistent, but because he's always growing. She can't fully figure him out, and that mystery creates attraction. Not manipulation, just genuine depth. She knows he's not the type to be controlled, not the type to be swayed by temporary beauty or fleeting attention. He sees beyond surface-level games. He's interested in connection, not conquest, in meaning, not moments. And that's why he stands out. Because in a world full of noise, he becomes the silence that so many crave. His presence is heavy, even when he says nothing. His confidence is calm, not cocky. His energy makes women lean in, wondering what makes him different, why he's not chasing like the rest, why he seems so complete on his own. It's not his money, his car, or the brand on his wrist. It's not about how loud he can be or how many women he's been with. It's about who he is when no one is watching. A high-value man doesn't chase women because he's too focused on chasing excellence. He doesn't seek validation through attention or praise because he validates himself through his actions, his growth, his integrity. He doesn't play roles to be liked. He simply lives in his truth. And women feel that. They feel the authenticity, the calmness, the strength. That doesn't need to be shouted. When he speaks, he doesn't overtalk. He listens. And when he does talk, there's weight in his words. He doesn't try to be charming because he doesn't need to. His presence does the work. His confidence is quiet, not performative, and that's what makes it so powerful. Most men try too hard. They think attraction is about impressing, performing, convincing, but the moment you try to convince someone to like you, you've already given your power away. The high-value man never begs for affection, never bargains for love. He knows that what is meant for him will recognize him. And he knows that trying to force connections only leads to empty ones. So instead of running after women, he runs toward his goals, toward purpose, toward becoming a better version of himself every day. And that journey, that devotion to self-growth, creates an energy around him. An energy that women sense. And it's not just about what he does, it's about what he doesn't do. He doesn't overreact. He doesn't try to control. He doesn't get rattled by rejection because his self-worth doesn't rise and fall with someone else's opinion. He walks away from what doesn't align. He doesn't stick around to be liked. He sticks to his values. That's rare. And that rarity draws women in. Not the kind of women who are looking for attention, but the kind who are looking for alignment, for something real, something that goes deeper than surface charm. And that's where the high-value man lives. He's not afraid to be alone. In fact, he values solitude because it's in solitude that he finds clarity. He's not running from himself, he's running with himself. And because he's not afraid to face his own shadows, he's not afraid of anyone else's truth either. Women trust him, not because he says the right things, but because he lives in truth. He's emotionally mature. He doesn't blow up over little things. He knows how to hold space for someone else's feelings without trying to fix or dismiss them. He's present, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. And when he gives someone his attention, it's full and undivided. He doesn't multitask affection. He doesn't breadcrumb affection. He offers consistency, not confusion. And women feel safe in that energy. Safe to open up, safe to be vulnerable, safe to connect, because they can sense that he's not pretending. He doesn't use love as a strategy. He's real. And when a man is real, he doesn't need to lift a finger to attract. His energy does the pulling. He knows what he wants, and he's not afraid to stand alone while the rest settle. He doesn't chase temporary pleasure when he's after lasting connection. He's selective, not because he's arrogant, but because he values his time, his peace, and his emotional energy. Not every pretty face impresses him. Not every opportunity excites him. He's looking for alignment, not attachment, and that clarity, that intention, makes him unforgettable. He's not the man who floods a woman's inbox with messages. He's the man who lives so fully in his purpose that she feels drawn to him before he even says a word. Women are drawn to this man not because he texts them every hour, but because when he speaks, he's intentional. Every word has purpose. Every message is clear. He doesn't waste time with empty flattery or shallow conversation. He understands that real connection starts with depth, not with gimmicks. He doesn't throw compliments just to get attention. He gives them when he genuinely means them. And because he's intentional, he doesn't just speak to be heard, he speaks to be understood. His words don't chase approval. They reflect clarity. He knows who he is, and that self-awareness allows him to be honest without being cruel, strong without being arrogant, and direct without being disrespectful. Women notice how he makes them feel, not pressured, not confused, but seen. There's no guessing with him, no games. He's not interested in creating desire through distance or manipulation. His value comes from his consistency and presence. The fact that he doesn't chase, doesn't overextend himself, and doesn't try to impress. Those things create a magnetic pull. He lets his vibe, not his volume, attract the right people. And the truth is, people can sense when a man knows who he is. It shows in the way he talks about his dreams, in how he carries himself, and in what he refuses to entertain. He's not easily distracted. He doesn't follow trends. He doesn't get lost in superficial pursuits. He has a direction, and that direction defines how he lives, how he loves, and how he leads. This kind of man isn't afraid to stand alone. He's not out at every party or chasing every woman because his fulfillment doesn't come from external validation. It comes from within. He builds in silence, succeeds in silence, and attracts in silence. And that stillness, that control, is magnetic. A woman feels it when she's around him. She doesn't feel like she's being pursued. She feels like she's being understood. And that difference is everything. Because in a world where most men try to earn a woman's attention, the high-value man simply creates the kind of life that makes her want to be part of it. He doesn't need to do too much, he just needs to be. He's not available to everyone. His time is guarded, not because he thinks he's better, but because he respects himself enough to be intentional with who he shares his energy with. He doesn't reply to every message, and he doesn't chase validation through attention. When he gives someone his time, it's meaningful. When he makes space for a woman, it's deliberate. And because of that, it holds value. His boundaries are firm, not to push people away, but to protect what he's built. And when a woman sees a man living like that, with self-respect, with vision, with direction, it's hard not to be drawn to him. He's not emotionally unavailable, but he's emotionally selective. He doesn't give his heart away just because someone is beautiful. He looks beyond appearances. He wants to know who she is when no one is watching, just like he knows who he is when the world goes silent. He values emotional depth over physical appeal. And because of that, the women he attracts are different. They're not drawn by surface games, they're drawn by soul alignment. He doesn't create chaos in a woman's life, he creates clarity. He doesn't promise love without the ability to carry it. He offers peace without the need for performance. There's nothing louder than the presence of a man who doesn't have to try. There's nothing more attractive than a man who knows his purpose and refuses to compromise it for temporary pleasure. His consistency becomes the desire. His integrity becomes the charm. His quiet strength becomes irresistible. Not because he chased her, but because he became someone worth chasing. Now here's the truth many men ignore. Women are emotional beings. We don't fall for what's shown, we fall for what's felt. A high-value man understands this. He knows that attraction isn't just built in the physical, it's built in the emotional. It's not about loud gestures or expensive gifts. It's about presence, depth, and energy. A woman remembers how you made her feel when she felt most herself. And the high-value man creates that space without even trying to manipulate it. He listens not to reply, but to understand. He doesn't fill silence with noise. He lets the silence speak because he's not afraid of it. He knows comfort doesn't come from words, it comes from energy. And when a woman feels safe in a man's energy, she opens up in ways she didn't even know she could. He doesn't need to impress her with stories about who he knows or what he owns. He lets his values show in how he lives. He doesn't talk about discipline, he embodies it. He doesn't preach about loyalty, he practices it. That kind of consistency is rare, and women feel it. They can tell when a man lives in alignment with what he says. And that alignment is attractive because it signals emotional safety. He's not up one day and down the next, he's steady, and that steadiness becomes magnetic. She doesn't have to wonder where she stands with him. She doesn't have to decode mixed signals. He communicates with clarity, not confusion. He doesn't leave her guessing, and that creates trust without having to say a word. The truth is, many men confuse availability with value. They think being constantly present will make a woman fall, but constant availability without substance becomes noise. The high-value man doesn't chase women with time he doesn't have. He values his time so much that when he gives it, it carries weight. He doesn't flood her phone with attention because he's too focused on his own growth, his own path, his own evolution. That's not neglect, it's purpose. And purpose is attractive. Women notice a man who's building something greater than himself. A man who isn't shaken by external opinions. A man who keeps moving forward, even if no one claps. Because he doesn't move for applause, he moves for alignment. When a woman meets a man like this, she can sense the difference. He's not reactive, he's responsive. He's not insecure, he's aware. He doesn't get defensive when challenged. He listens and reflects. That emotional intelligence sets him apart. It's not just about how he treats her. It's about how he treats himself. Because a man who respects himself sets the standard for how he allows others to treat him, and that sets the tone in every relationship. He leads with energy, not ego. He stands firm in his decisions, but stays open in his thinking. He doesn't dominate conversations, but his presence lingers even after he's left. A woman doesn't fall in love with the things a man gives her. She falls for the way he makes her feel when she's around him. Does she feel heard, seen, valued? Or does she feel like just another option? The high-value man doesn't make women feel like options. He makes them feel chosen. But not because he's desperate to keep them, but because he's intentional in choosing. That kind of intentionality can't be faked. It can't be bought. It's developed in solitude, in self-work, in discipline, and the result is a man who no longer needs to lift a finger because his entire being does the work for him. His boundaries become his filter, his standards become his language, his energy becomes the invitation. So when a man becomes rooted in purpose, steady in emotion, and rich in self-respect, he doesn't need to chase love. It finds him. He doesn't seek to impress. He simply is impressive. And in a world full of noise, it's his silence, his strength, and his certainty that speak the loudest.